Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good morning. It is 7 o'clock a.m. This is, it's Saturday morning, Calgary, Alberta, April 24th, and I'm happy to be here. This is Child Abuse Prevention, and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is up to us. And we're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com, and I have my chat room open if anybody wants to sit in there. It's a little early. I don't know who would be up on a Saturday morning at this time, but I am. So I'm just happy to be here. And we're going to finish up an article that we were looking at all week in the evenings, Monday, Wednesday night, last night, and it's an article that I found on a website. It's Family Violence Alberta, and it's you can find it at www.familyviolence.alberta.ca, and it's a great article regarding family violence and child abuse, and lots of good information there regarding, really the effects that family violence has on children, what to do if you're an adult in the home and you're not the abuser, but you need to get your children to safety, and, what to do to help these children who have been abused to learn that, that it wasn't their fault. First of all, they didn't deserve to be abused. It's a great article, and so we're going to finish up with that today, and then we're going to start looking at domestic violence again, because domestic violence is such a huge issue, and that all ties in with family violence, and so I thought I'd just continue on with that. And we see the reports in the paper, we see the reports on the news, but the fact is that so much domestic violence and child abuse is not reported. So what we're seeing out there is just a small portion of actually what is really going on, and it just doesn't make the news. You know what I mean? They'd have to have a whole paper just devoted strictly to child abuse and domestic violence issues and assaults, just to be able to cover it all. That would only be if people would actually report it, which they should. It's the law, especially regarding child abuse, and that's why I'm doing this show. I just want to be one more voice out there. There's some awesome voices out there speaking out against child abuse and speaking up for victims and survivors of child abuse, and also for domestic violence, missing persons. There's some awesome people out there doing some great work. I just wanted to join in and add my voice, and just be one more voice, one more place where people could get some education, because I'm researching all the time. I'm a part-time student at MRU here in Calgary. I'm studying international community development, which ties in with child rights, human rights, and that's my goal, is to continue on and get completely 100% involved in advocacy work, to help make a difference in this world. And I'm in between courses because I can't afford to go right now. But that'll hopefully change pretty soon, and I'll be able to get back into the course. It's an online course, but it's an awesome course, and I'm continually studying, so that's why I do this. I study all the time, even though I'm not in class. I'm not in the courses right now, but I keep studying because I will eventually be back in the courses, and I'll be just that much more ready to take the courses and pass them. And so that's the whole idea. Is I thought, why not? I find all this information, I may as well share it with people. And also, I'm a survivor of child abuse, and I grew up in a violent home full of domestic violence and abuse. I knew lots of kids growing up whose homes were, just as bad as mine or worse. And so I knew this has been going on in my life forever. It's something I've had to face and look at my whole entire life. And I thought, I know there's other people out there like me, because I had so many friends who were, and I know the consequences and what happens to children and adults when they are abused, and I know how hard it is for them, right? So that's why I do these shows, and just to be another voice out there saying that we have to find a way, society has to really start looking at this differently and start talking about it, because how else are we going to fix it? You know what I mean? You can't fix something that you don't know about. If you don't know something's a problem, how are you going to fix it? So mainstream society really needs to hear a lot more voices regarding child abuse and human rights abuses and domestic violence and whatnot, child sexual predators and whatnot. Everybody's voice is important in this. It's really going to take all of our voices. So that's why I thought, hey, I'll just join right in there. Why not? And start talking about it, because it doesn't bother me to talk about abuse, because I grew up with it, I grew up in it, around it, and I know a lot about it. So and what it does to people. So, I thought, hey, why not? Why am I just sitting here being silent? So, last fall I decided to start doing Blog Talk Radio after I was listening to a Blog Talk program, Voices of Hope, Gail Crabtree's Voices of Hope, here on Blog Talk Radio, and she's just awesome. So that's what prompted me to do my own show. And Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and they actually knew other people who were doing Blog Talk shows, Tad Camp and some other people, and they thought, hey, we should do a Blog Talk show. So I'm the Canada Regional Director. They asked me if I wanted to co-host, to help be a part of Dreamcatchers Talk Radio here on Blog Talk Radio. So we're doing that as well, and we're also expanding. So that's coming up in May. We're going to be on blogtalkradio.com 5 days a week, and for 2 or 3 hours per day. The schedule will be coming up, and everybody can check it out. It's going to be some great people, great guests and guest speakers, professionals, people who work with children, who have the information regarding what's actually happening out there in the field and with child abuse issues. And this is going to be such a good information. I hope everybody will tune in. That's Dreamcatchers Talk Radio on blogtalkradio.com. And I'm going to continue on with my shows just because I'm a survivor of child abuse. And I think that survivors need to hear from other survivors, and they also need to hear that there's hope and that they can do it. I'm not a professional. I don't have any professional counseling certificates or therapist certificates. Just a survivor who's been through it, really been through hell. And now I'm so glad that I've walked out most of my healing, and I just like to be able to share with people, that message that, you have to hang on, you have to hang in there, and you have to keep reaching out. So that's why I do the One Child Abuse Survivor to Another show, because I know that there's so many survivors out there. 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be abused or sexually abused before the age of 18. And the stats, that's just too high, right? That just means, if you look around, pretty much, a huge portion of us have been abused, and it's just horrible. Then you think about all the domestic violence survivors and victims, right? And how many people have lost their lives in domestic violence and abuse situations. And then the people who have survived, I know lots and lots of people who have survived domestic violence and abuse. That's why, my whole life has been encompassed really from the time I was born with the abuse issues, right? So that's why I do this show, because I've experienced it, I've lived it, and I know not all of it, but I know what a lot of it's about and what it's like, So that's why I'm doing this show. I'm so happy that you can tune in. If you're a young person under the age of 18, please make sure you have an adult know what you're doing online. So important, because you could save your life. There are child sexual predators out there. They will use every single means they can to get a hold of you, and they will, ruin your life. If they don't kill you, your life will be ruined by being assaulted by a child sexual predator. So, I want to tell you right now, it's so important to have yourself, to make sure that you're safe, right? Child online safety is a huge issue with me, and because I believe in child protection, and I believe that children deserve to have a nice, healthy, happy life. And we know that there's so many people out there, crazy people, trying to get a hold of kids online. So that's why I just ask everyone who's under the age of 18 to have somebody check this show out with them when you listen to it. And that way, like an adult, whether it's a parent or a caregiver, someone in the family, that you trust and you think would have a good head on their shoulders, a teacher, counselor, guidance counselor, coach, mentor, somebody like that, who can just listen to the show with you. Make sure it's something you should be listening to, because I don't know where the players are now. So the Blog Talk players get placed around where people decide to put them on their websites. So I don't know where the players are, and kids could be listening. So if you're a young person, you want to make sure you do yourself a favor, and myself, and everybody else a favor, and keep yourself safe, and don't allow yourself to be killed or become a victim of a child sexual predator. That's all I can say. Just start looking in the paper, and you can see the reports. It's in our face. It's happening, and really, you have to keep yourself safe, right? So that's why I asked that from the young people, right? So important. So the topics of abuse are very sensitive. So if anyone feels uncomfortable listening to the topics of abuse, of any kind of abuse, please turn off the show. You have to listen at your own discretion. So we'll get right on with this article. We're actually finishing it up, and this is the family violence child abuse article from www.familyviolence.alberta.ca, and it says here, we'll just continue on where we left off. Last night we left off at, if you are concerned about a child or young person outside your home, ways you can help. It says, report your concern. If you suspect a child is being abused or neglected by a parent or guardian, report your suspicions immediately. Call the police, your local Child and Family Services Authority, or the 24-hour Child Abuse Hotline at 1-800-387-KIDS. I haven't tried that number, but so I don't know if it works. But it's probably a Canadian number, because this article is from Alberta. It's from the government of Alberta, so it's probably a Canadian child abuse hotline. But you can find those those numbers in your phone book. And it says, if you suspect someone other than a parent or guardian is abusing a child, report your suspicions immediately to the police. Look in the emergency pages of your local telephone directory to find the telephone number of police in your area. I would say that's just anyone. If you suspect that a child is being abused in any way, you have to report it. And so, you don't want to just wait around to see who might be abusing the child or if it's actually happening. It's a matter of life and death for these children. And children have probably died last night due to abuse. And wouldn't doubt it that we'll see some reports in the paper. Especially young children under the age of 4. There's a lot of toddlers and babies that are killed every night by parents who can't cope or who have substance abuse problems or mental issues, psychological issues, right? So we've probably lost more last night, right? And the whole thing is don't wait around to see who's doing what and if it's actually happening. If you suspect abuse of any kind, you have to make the phone call. It's just so important. You can save a child's life, right? It says, number 2, show the children or young people that you are interested in them. Listen if they talk. Spend time with them doing things you both enjoy. Respect their choices and show them that their feelings and opinions matter. Tell them they are worthwhile people. And number 3, expose children or young people to activities that are fun and lighthearted. They need laughter and happiness in their lives. And this is if you know of a young person who has a horrible home life, and you don't know if they're being abused, but yet they're just not. There's just no one around that actually is trying to help make their lives fun and interesting and stuff like that. This would be information for people who know a child in that situation, right? Number 4, arrange for the children or young people to be in situations where adults are respectful of one another and of children. And what that does is, it allows children to see healthy relationships between adults and children, right? Because if you grow up in an abusive home, and really the only interaction between the adults and the children is violence, that's what they see and grow up with, right? So it's good for kids to be able to see normal behaviors between adults and children. The only way they're going to do it is if someone, if people take the time to step in and do it and actually set this up. And when I was growing up, I really didn't see any normal behavior in anyone's around me, except for a few of my friends' families. And so, it really helped to go to their houses and see how their parents interacted with each other and what would happen over there. And there would be times where I thought, if something would happen, I was thinking of violence would erupt even at their house, thinking that that's the way they lived. And then when it didn't, I'd be like, wow, this is different. They handled it differently, right? So it almost, because I was always living in fear, right? I was always afraid of everything and just about every adult, right? So, it has a huge effect on children, and they do need to see normal situations between adults, right, so that they can learn the proper way that adults should behave around children and the proper way that children should behave around adults. Because otherwise, if they don't see that when they're growing up, it's quite confusing, and it's hard for children, right? It's hard for children to learn that later on. Show them that they can count on adults. Keep your promises. Do what you say you will do. Show up on time and be completely reliable. Number 7, comment on their strengths. Be specific. Say, I can see that you are good at driving, or I like your drawings, or I like the way you use color. I think you are good at drawing. This really helps build a child's self-esteem and confidence, right? And if they're just being kind of emotionally and verbally battered at home and they don't hear anything good about themselves, obviously there'll be self-esteem issues there and lack of confidence, you know what I mean, and sort of a self-worthlessness. And so you have to kind of help build children up, right? And I mean, not overly do it because they don't need that, but what they need is just a person to be nice to them and to help build on those strengths that they have, right? Number 8, help the children discover their strengths and talents. Children who know they are good at something find it easier to believe they can influence their lives. And number 9, make sure they are exposed to healthy role models or seek appropriate support groups. It says things not to do. Number 1, do not ask direct questions about what happens at home. Number 2, do not give advice or tell the child what to do. Number 3, do not overreact to stories of abuse or violence. If you show how upset you are, the child or young person may stop talking to you. And number 4, do not criticize the child's family. The child may feel personally criticized or may feel forced to defend the abusive adults. Because the abusers, most children love their parents, and even if the parents are abusive, children have a tendency to love their parents. And that's sad because I know that's what happened to me. I mean, I love my parents very much, but they were very abusive people. And, I didn't like what they were doing, and I didn't appreciate what they did, and I still don't. But the thing is that you don't want to criticize a child's family in front of them. If they're criticizing them, well, that's their own thing because they're trying to let something out, right, and get something out. But I think the adults in the situation should just remain neutral and let the child talk and get it off their chest, right? It's better to do that, right? This would be after you reported the abuse and you still have contact with this child, right? And maybe they've gone into foster care or whatever, but you're still in contact with them. These would be things that you would want to do. And it says, if you are a young person living in an abusive home with abuse, number 1, know that you are a strong person to have survived as long as you have. Number 2, know that you can have a better life. Number 3, know that you are not responsible for the abuse and violence. The abusers are responsible for their actions. You do not deserve to live with abuse, and you do not deserve to be abused. Nobody does. You deserve respect and a safe, healthy, and loving home. And number 4, know that you are not alone. Others have been in situations like yours and have gone on to have a safe and happy life, and you can too. And number 5, look for people who are strong without being mean or violent. Look for people who are living a life that you would enjoy. Look for people who have healthy, affectionate relationships with friends and family. Yeah, we have to choose, to really pick the people that we should be hanging around with and that we should mentor our lives after, and it shouldn't be other abusive people. If you grow up as an abused child in an abusive home, the last thing you want to do is spend your whole adult life being abused, right? So we have to be able to set boundaries and know, that we can say no to abuse, and we don't have to live a life full of abuse, right? So that's why I made a real decision when I got older that I was not going to allow anyone to ever abuse me again. Whether it's a husband or a boyfriend or partner or even a friend, I will not allow anyone to abuse me because I've spent so many years, suffering through from being abused as a child. And, really the abuse continued on until my mom died when I was 30. And my dad is he's borderline schizophrenic, so he's good one day and the next day he's not. So I still will not tolerate any abuse. And it's because I just said no more. Right? So, we have to really make those choices for ourselves and as an adult survivor of child abuse to not be re-victimized and to know that, if we're going to enter into any kind of relationship, there has to be boundaries set. And if people cross those boundaries and they start to abuse us, then it's our right to say no. You know what I mean? We cannot allow ourselves to continually be abused. And so I made that decision a long time ago. I'm sticking to it. And actually, I just refuse to allow anyone to abuse me, whether it's a person at work or anywhere in my life. It's not welcome. I don't allow it. So so therefore, people treat me with respect because they know that I will not tolerate any abuse, right? So really, it's so important. You don't want to spend your whole life being abused, and if you were abused as a child, that's enough, right? And if you make it through and you survive to your adulthood, the last thing you need is more abuse. So that's why I say there's great articles out there about, re-victimization and how to sort of prevent that, right? There's some great info out there. That might be on Help Guide. There probably is some information regarding re-victimization and stuff like that on helpguide.org, http://helpguide.org. That's a great website. We're going to look at some domestic violence and abuse information from there in just a bit. Hope if we have time. I think we do because this article, we're just about finished. And it says here, find ways to be in places that are safe, fun, and healthy. This is if you're a young person living in an abusive home with abuse, right? Find places that you enjoy that make you feel good. Spend as much time in these places as you can. The more you are in safe and enjoyable places, the more you will be able to create a life for yourself that feels like that, right? Similar to the safe place that you like to go. Find activities that are fun and safe. Find activities that help you discover more of your talents and gifts. And, if you're a young person living in an abusive home with abuse, really you don't deserve to be abused, and you have to tell someone. It's so important to tell someone and get yourself safe, you know what I mean? Too many kids are losing their lives at the hands of parents and caregivers, and if their lives aren't lost, well, they're just ruined because of the abuse. And you don't want to allow yourself to be abused, and if you're a young person and you're old enough to make a phone call, they have some information here. Call 911, right? Because you have to, if we know of a child or a young person who's in immediate danger, call 911. But if you are being abused, there's all kinds of child abuse hotlines that you can just look at, and you can find them online. You can find them on in the phone book, right, in the front of the phone book. There's all kinds of kids helplines and child abuse hotlines, and so you do not want to be abused. Don't allow yourself to be abused. If you know a child that's being abused, make the phone call. It's so important because you could save your own life. You could save a child's life, right? So important. So that's the end of that article, and that was from www.familyviolence.alberta.ca, and I just think it was a great article. It has all kinds of good information in there also about, we already covered it, but it has lots of information regarding signs and symptoms of abuse and, what to look for and stuff. So it's a great article. So family violence, I mean, it's a huge issue, and I grew up in a violent home, and it was a scary place to be, and I kind of often felt that the streets were a little bit safer than my home. And so I was always running around on the streets, just staying away from home. I was a little bit safer, especially in the summertime, because when I was off in the summertime, that's when most of the abuse would happen, because I'd be around the house. So the more I was away from home, obviously, the less possibility and chance that I would be abused by my mother especially, and some by my father, but mostly by my mom, right? So, it's bad because then you end up hanging around on the streets. Anything can happen. I almost got kidnapped by 5 men, different times, but 5 times I counted where I could have been kidnapped and taken by men, probably child sexual predators, and just because I was out on my own, by myself, running around on the streets, right? And then I would hang around with other people, and we tend to do drugs and get in trouble, and that's just the whole issue, right? It's a huge issue, and abuse, child abuse, is just wrong, and we have to really stand up for kids and make some noise, right? And domestic violence is just as wrong, and but adults in a situation have, even though their lives are, because that's the whole issue. If your life is being threatened by your partner, whether it's a man or a woman, doesn't matter. If your life's being threatened by a partner, and they're saying, "Oh, well, I'll kill you if you leave," and see, I've already heard all that. You know what I mean? Or I'll kill somebody else if you leave, or whatever. You have to have a safety plan, right? You really do have to have something in place, a safety plan, where you can make sure that you can get help, right? And you can set it up where you can have somebody. If you have a friend who's actually knows about this safety plan, they can keep your information for you, all in a safe place, right? And then what you do is you have a code word, and if you have to phone because your life is in danger or your children's lives in danger, you just phone them. They call the cops, right? So you have a code word, like even if you phone this friend and you were just to say hello, maybe that would be the code word, because that you would work it out with your friend that you would never answer the phone that way, or you would never call them and say hello, right? So there's so many good ways to keep yourself safe if you're living in a violent, abusive home, as far as domestic violence and abuse goes. If your children are being abused, it's the law. You have to report it, and you have to get your children to safety, because they're counting on you. They have nobody else to count on, right? So the helpguide.org, this is a great website. I love this website. There's so much good information regarding everything, right? Child abuse, survivors' issues, mental, and psychological issues, and there's so much great information there. You can check it out, and that's http helpguide.org. And I pulled up this article a long time ago on domestic violence and abuse, because I did a whole 2 weeks worth of domestic violence shows, but they're way back there. You'd have to go through my archives to find them, and then I don't label my archives with what I'm actually talking about for the day because I was just so busy. I just decided to leave it as a generic sort of a title for the show. But I don't know, back in December, I'm pretty sure it was right around December and January, I did at least 2 or maybe even 3 weeks on domestic violence and abuse, and because it's such a huge problem, and you have to make sure you keep yourself safe if you're in that situation, and get a safety plan, and have a plan just in case, right? So there's all kinds of good information on this helpguide.org article here. It's called Domestic Violence and Abuse, Signs of Abuse and Abusive Relationships, and then it goes on to talk about signs of abusive relationships. Physical violence is just one form of domestic violence. Violent and abusive behavior is the abuser's choice. There's so much good information here. Also, the cycle of violence in domestic violence, and recognizing the warning signs of domestic violence and abuse. Speak up if you suspect domestic violence, right? If you're in a domestic violence situation, RAIN is a good organization to get involved with. Also, there's the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-787-3224. Now, the National Domestic Violence Hotline. And then there is also a safety plan from domesticviolence.org, www.domesticviolence.org. It's what can I do to be safe? There's all kinds of good information there on how to get a safety plan and how to keep yourself safe in a situation where there's domestic violence and your partner is abusing you, right? And there's also from the National I forget what these letters stand for something. Oh yeah, the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, right? NCADV. So it's www.ncadv.org, or you can just type into your browser National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. They have a safety plan as well, and lots of great information on there regarding domestic violence and statistics and all kinds of good information there, right? And I mean, this is a great article because it's all about how to erase your tracks online, internet safety, right? How an abuser can track your activities, and erasing your tracks, to delete your history, your cache file. Also, learning how to erase your all the history and the cookies, and you can disable the cookies. Protecting your identity. So much good information on this article. This is from the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, and that's www.ncadv. And so there's some good information out there. We're going to continue this article on tomorrow morning at same time, 7 o'clock a.m. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. We have a couple minutes left, and I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, a child advocate, and I really fight for child rights. I stand up for child rights to stand up against abuse, right? And so, you can check their website out. They have some great information. Well, we do. And Sandra Dawn Potter, she's the CEO and founder of Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and this website is just awesome. There is so much good information on there regarding signs and symptoms of child abuse, how to get help for parents who are having a hard time coping. This is real resources and links, right? You want to check it out. There's some good information there. Signs and symptoms, how to report child abuse, for people who work with children, for instance, daycare workers, pediatricians, just anyone out there who works with children on a daily basis. Dreamcatchers for Abused Children can send free informational packages to you so that you can have that, and you can do little seminars where you work and stuff to try to educate the people that you work with regarding child abuse, what's actually happening, and the signs and symptoms, what to look for, and how to report it. And so, you want to check their website out, http://dreamcatcherforabusedchildren.com. And then you want to listen to the blog talk shows starting May, first week in May, going to five nights a week, Monday through Friday, in the evenings. And it's just going to be awesome. I just hope you can tune in and listen. That's http://www.blogtalkradio.com/dreamcatchers, DREAM CATCHERS, Dreamcatchers. And there's going to be some great information there. There's all kinds of, there's going to be the other regional directors from around North America are going to be tuning in they're going to be hosting the shows. So there's going to be the Southern Regional Director, the North Central Regional Director, I'm not sure, not the Western, but there's another one. There's going to be some great information. They're going to have guests and guest speakers and all kinds of good information there regarding child abuse and how to protect children and how to keep the children in your life safe, right? So important. So, yeah, thanks so much for tuning in, and have a great day, everybody. Have a great weekend. Take care of yourselves, and if you suspect abuse, make sure you report it. It's the law. And plus, you want to help save a child's life. Have a great day.